House Targale, once renowned as the Emperor's sword and the pride of the Empire, had fallen into obscurity and disgrace. Their glory was but a distant memory. And so, Hergines Targale, the eldest daughter of the house, found herself ordered to marry a man chosen by the Emperor. Hergines wasn't thrilled about this arrangement, but what made it even more bizarre to her was the thought of an arranged marriage being inconceivable in her homeland, Korea. Of course, such musings made no sense in the context of her life in a world of swords and magic. Hergines was far from a typical woman, after all, as she contemplated the disparities between her worlds. Her newfound fiancé was already discussing the terms that would govern their married life. These rules encompassed a wide range of expectations, including adopting the name Kyroxis, sharing a bed only once a week for the sake of producing an heir, refraining from meddling in each other's affairs, and never seeking affection or love. Hergines found herself lost in thought, her attention divided between her husband-to-be's discussion of the terms and her contemplations about her family's decline. She couldn't help but wonder that if her family still held the power they once did, she would never have agreed to this arrangement. Regrettably, her family had lost its influence during her generation. However, not everything was bleak. Hergines silently appreciated the fact that her betrothed was exceptionally good-looking. The thought of being forced into a marriage with some old geezer had haunted her, and in such a scenario, she might have considered drastic actions against the imperial family. Yet, despite his attractive appearance, her fiancé's demeanor was less than ideal. Hergines had been carefully observing and analyzing him, and she had detected an unwarranted air of confidence about his ability to make her fall in love with him. She believed she had everything under control, but when he asked if there was anything she'd like to say, her composure crumbled. Nervously, she reached for the contract he had prepared, eager to read through it quickly, recognizing that this was her only chance to raise objections. Hergines refused to let her nervousness overwhelm her, swiftly regaining control of the situation. She boldly began amending the rules her fiancé had proposed. She decided they would sleep together once a month, have breakfast individually, and respect each other's personal time. These adjustments visibly caught her fiancé off guard, causing him to flinch and almost trip. But Hergines wasn't finished yet. She continued to modify every rule he had laid out, even chastising him for his tone. She reminded him that, until they were married, she still held a higher status than he did, and speaking down to her was entirely inappropriate. At this point, Hergines started narrating her past life in another world. She was born into a wealthy family in Korea and, by chance, took up fencing after practicing kendo. Her talents led her to become a member of the national fencing team. Tragically, while she was preparing for the Olympics, a jealous team member pushed her down a flight of stairs, ending her life at a young age. After her narration about her past life, Hergines went on to describe her current situation as a member of House Targale. The family, formerly renowned as the Emperor's sword, had seen a decline in their swordsmanship talents over the generations. When her brother, Eshin, was born, they had hoped he would possess this talent, but he too lacked it. The family faced financial troubles and their parents passed away, leaving them in a precarious situation. Despite their desperate circumstances, the imperial family repeatedly refused to offer assistance. The Targale estate was sold off piece by piece, and only Hergines and Eshin remained. As the older sister, she felt the weight of responsibility to provide for her brother and sustain their estate. She was determined not to marry a wealthy merchant, which disgusted her to even consider. Then, she had a realization that would change her life. As she retrieved a training sword from storage and held it, an uncanny sensation washed over her. It felt as if she had wielded a sword her entire life, leading her to the revelation that the true talent in swordsmanship had been within her all along. Hergines' decision to become a mercenary came from her determination to support herself and her brother, Eshin, who had been blaming himself for their family's misfortune. However, she knew it was impossible for a woman to become a knight in this world, so she kept her true identity hidden from Eshin. After sending him to his school's dormitory, she took on the disguise of a male mercenary. To maintain this facade, she cut and dyed her hair and bound her chest to blend in among the warriors. Joining the Valois army seemed like the best choice as it was an area she was familiar with, and their generous pay made it even more appealing. However, despite her disguise, her feminine appearance led to unwanted attention and harassment from some men. Hergines, though, possessed both the strength and combat skills to fend off her harassers and maintain her cover. Her actions earned her the nickname Pretty-Faced Monster, which began to spread as her reputation grew. This nickname and her fame eventually reached the ears of Sean Kyroxis' troops, the very man who would later become her fiancé. In the year 994 of the Enix calendar, the Battle of Kirkler raged on, plunging the entire battlefield into a state of pandemonium and chaos. Amidst this tumult, Hergines, still in her male disguise, found herself engaged in combat against multiple foes. Her remarkable swiftness, agility, and graceful fighting style allowed her to defeat her enemies with remarkable skill. However, the odds were stacked against her, and the order for a retreat was eventually issued. Without hesitation, she followed the retreat order, making her way out of the dangerous fray. As she moved through the chaotic battlefield, a strange and troubling sight captured her attention. A Valorian knight was launching a treacherous assault on one of his comrades, who had been taken by surprise and had fallen to the ground. The aggressor cursed his comrade, hoping for his death. Initially, Herjeans considered staying out of the situation and continuing her retreat. However, her compassionate nature got the best of her, and she decided to intervene to aid the fallen comrade. Fortunately, the injured man was still conscious, and she helped him to his feet, moving him to a safer location. Though she did her best to provide some basic medical assistance and stop the bleeding, the injured man's condition had him ranting about seeking vengeance against everyone. Herjeans couldn't help but wonder what wrongs he had suffered. Over time, the injured man regained consciousness, and upon learning that Herjeans was a mercenary, he assumed she was a man and questioned why she had saved him. Her response was simple and straightforward. She had done it without any specific reason, motivated by her compassion and a sense of duty to help those in need. After informing him that he was on his own and leaving him a piece of bread, Herjeans prepared to leave. However, the man, now identified as Sean Kyroxis, asked for her name. Herjeans suggested that he should share his name first. To her surprise, he introduced himself as Sean Kyroxis, which caught her off guard with its straightforwardness. Respecting their deal, she revealed her name as Herj. Little did she know that the man she had saved that day would eventually become her future husband. Some time later, Herjeans was dining in a tavern when she overheard nearby patrons discussing Kyroxis and his remarkable ascent through the ranks. He had gone from humble origins to leading the knights in recent battles. However, she couldn't continue eavesdropping on their conversation, as a red-headed individual entered the tavern and, upon confirming her identity as the pretty-faced monster, decided to challenge her to a duel. Herjeans skillfully wielded her sword in one hand and a dagger in the other, a surprising move that caught the red-haired man, Tarkan, off guard. He hadn't anticipated facing a dual-wielding warrior. However, he remained confident and even inquired about how she intended to defend against his attacks. Herjeans simply informed him that he was about to fall, and indeed, he did. The defeat impressed Tarkan, and he introduced himself. He extended an offer to become her partner, but Herjeans rejected it. Some time later, during another battle, Herjeans sensed danger and evaded a barrage of arrows. She quickly located the archer responsible and climbed a small hill to confront him. The archer fired several arrows, but Herjeans skillfully evaded all of them and eventually defeated him. The archer begged for mercy, and Herjeans spared his life. He expressed curiosity about how she had managed to dodge every arrow. Rafine, the archer who Herjeans spared, explained that he had been aiming poorly during their battle. He introduced himself and pledged to follow her orders, abandoning his guild to join Herjeans. He even got into a dispute with Tarkan over who had seniority in being Herjeans' subordinate. Later on, some acquaintances of Herjeans apprehended a woman who had been posing as a man and attempting to harass her. Herjeans and her two subordinates intervened to prevent further trouble. The grateful woman expressed her thanks, and Herjeans revealed her true identity as a lady. The other red-haired girl asked if she could join Herjeans' group. Herjeans inquired about her skills, and the girl explained that she was an alchemist. This revelation surprised Herjeans, as she couldn't fathom why someone not affiliated with the military would be in the area. The red-haired woman then explained that she was searching for a crucial ingredient from the vicinity. The group, Elizar, actively participated in the 100-Year War by aligning themselves with the highest bidder. Their involvement caused unease among both Valwar and Haglatin, and as the name Elizar gained recognition, the fateful battle of Sean and Elizar unfolded. In a surprising turn of events, Herjeans chose to withdraw her group instead of engaging in combat, leaving Rafine, Tarkan, and Ivana bewildered. Tarkan questioned her decision, but even Herjeans couldn't articulate the reason behind her avoidance of the confrontation. Nevertheless, the battle eventually commenced while Elizar was still on the battlefield. Forcing them to engage in combat, they bore witness to Sean's incredible prowess, understanding why he's called the demon of the battlefield. The intervention by Ivana snapped Herjeans back to reality, revealing that the entire situation had been a trap set for them. Their allies had retreated, leaving Elizar the only ones left. They found themselves surrounded, and the leader of their enemies offered them a choice. If they sided with Haglatin, their lives would be spared. Herjeans noticed that Sean was also among their enemies. She asked about their intentions regarding him, and the people from Haglatin were quick to state that they wanted him dead, considering him a monster and a demon. Herjeans, aware of the practical choice at that moment, hesitated. She couldn't make the decision, and instead, she just stared at Sean. Sean returned her gaze, and then Herjeans shook her head. Her comrades began asking her what the plan was. She continued to hesitate, knowing that siding with Haglatin was the right thing to do. Her brother needed the money, and she had to consider her partner's safety. Fortunately, her partners saw through her and offered their support by declaring that they didn't want to join Haglatin. Touched by their gesture, Herjeans apologized to them and ordered them to protect Sean, who was shocked by her actions. He asked why they were doing this, but Herjeans simply replied that there was no particular reason. The battle continued, and Sean's actions almost led to Herjeans being injured. In response, she quickly pressed a dagger against Sean's throat, issuing a stern warning that any further endangerment would result in his demise. Sean fell silent, and the battle pressed on. However, Herjeans couldn't help but notice an incredible synergy between herself and Sean while they fought. This fateful day saw the Haglotten army close to annihilation, a situation brought about by the actions of just 5 individuals. This extraordinary tale became the talk of the surviving soldiers, boosting the morale of the Valor army while diminishing that of Haglotten. This legendary battle would forever be remembered as the Battle of Sean and Elizur. Thanks to this incident, the Valor Empire emerged victorious, bringing an end to the war. Surprisingly, Herjeans and Sean never interacted again, and their friendship remained non-existent. In her role as Elizur's captain, Herjeans accumulated as much wealth as she could. Herjeans used the wealth she accumulated to cover Eschen's tuition fees and support their estate's upkeep. One day, she received a message from her homeland informing her that her brother had fallen from a horse and was injured. Without hesitation, she decided to return home, notifying her comrades of her choice. Initially, they feared that her departure might lead to the disbandment of their group, but she reassured them, promising to keep in touch. Herjeans stated that they would reunite in the future and entrusted the care of Elizur to her comrades until then. Raphine, Ivana, and Tarkan became emotional but eventually bid her farewell. Unbeknownst to Herjeans, Sean was waiting for her on the road and inquired about her destination. She replied that someone was waiting for her, and Sean suggested that she should stay. However, Herjeans declined, insisting that she had to leave. Sean stood firm in his insistence, asserting his authority as the deputy commander and the potential consequences of her actions constituting military insubordination. Herjeans appealed to him to release her, but Sean remained resolute. She persisted, emphasizing that her presence was no longer needed, but Sean's response remained unyielding. He stated plainly that Elizur held no significance for him, and his sole concern was for her. Herjeans burst into hearty laughter upon hearing this, playfully remarking that Sean had a streak of romance in him. At this point, Sean was still unaware of her true identity. She mentioned that he might owe her a favor in the future for saving him, teasingly asking him to stay alive until that day arrives. Sean responded with a promise to make an effort, eventually allowing her to depart. Over the past 3 years, Herjeans crossed paths with Sean on just 3 occasions. Yet she knew those moments would remain unforgettable in her memory. Inwardly, she nurtured a hope that if fate ever brought them together after the war, they could engage in a formal duel to determine the superior combat. However, the prospect of their union manifesting as a marriage was far from her expectations. Luckily, Eschen was safe, allowing her to envision a life of newfound freedom with the wealth she had accumulated. Unfortunately, her aspirations were abruptly shattered by an imperial decree. She couldn't refrain from expressing her frustration. Out of all the available suitors, Sean Kyroxis had been the chosen one. She couldn't forgive Prince Raymond for leveraging her family name to bestow the title of Count upon Sean. Herjean's current situation finds her in a room with Sean, lamenting his manner of speaking. In response, Sean offers an apology, promising to make efforts to amend the clauses and send them over to her. Herjeans finds herself taken by surprise when Sean expresses a desire to meet her younger brother. Their conversation continues, but Herjeans grows increasingly convinced that Sean might be suspecting something. She knows that revealing her true identity as Herj from Elizur would have serious consequences, especially considering the financial dealings between Elizur and the Valor Empire. Herjeans remains cautious about maintaining her secret. As Herjeans and Sean discuss her brother Eschen, she informs Sean that Eschen is a student at Equez University and will be present at the wedding, which seems to surprise Sean. He inquires about Eschen's eye color, and Herjeans tells him that her brother has lighter, sky blue eyes. In a later tea session with Prince Raymond, the topic of Lady Herjeans arises. When Sean mentions that she reminds him of someone he knows, Raymond is taken aback and curious about how Herjeans could remind him of someone else. Sean's cryptic remark about Herjeans being similar to Herj piques Raymond's curiosity, but he remains unaware of the full story. He advises Sean to stay close to Herjeans even if he doesn't want to, as their personal relationship could have implications for Sean's title. Sean reassures Raymond that he can separate personal matters from his work. As Herjeans is traveling, she suddenly orders the coachman to stop the vehicle, explaining that she has personal matters to attend to nearby. Later, she arrives at the place where her former partners are, and when she sees them, she greets them with happiness, leaving them surprised. Ivana is the first to react, as she already knows Herjeans' secret, and it's easy for her to connect the dots regarding her true identity. After a brief discussion, Herjeans sighs, apologies for keeping her identity a secret, and then reveals her real name. Herjeans clarifies that the situation is not as simple as it seems due to her gender, and Rafine expresses his understanding of the complexity. He acknowledges that a woman with her exceptional talents would bring disgrace to House Targale. Tarkan finally comprehends the full picture, and Ivana playfully teases him for being slow to catch on. The group also realizes the potential consequences of revealing that Herge of Elizur is, in fact, a woman. Herjeans implores her former comrades to keep her secret, and they wholeheartedly agree. Ivana even offers to create a liquid bomb in case Sean acts recklessly, but Herjeans declines the offer. Rafine suggests keeping a watchful eye on the situation, but she rejects the idea, fearing it will expose them. Tarkan proposes challenging Sean to a duel, but Herjeans gently tells him that he would lose. In the end, the four friends continue to share drinks and cherish each other's company, their bond stronger than ever. Herjeans shares a heartfelt moment with her brother Estion when he returns home. He expresses concern that her marriage might be his fault for not being skilled with a sword, and he promises to excel in his studies to support her. The siblings discuss her upcoming marriage when Sean arrives. His intense scrutiny of Estion makes Herjeans realize he's checking if Estion is Herge. Later, as they walk together outside, Herjeans notices Sean's handsome features and well-toned skin. She's caught off guard when he suddenly gets very close, as if preparing to kiss her. She closes her eyes, anticipating the kiss, but Sean surprises her by taking her hand and remarking on her rough hands. She explains her family's lack of wealth compared to other nobles, leading to her having to work for survival. Sean embraces her, but she playfully pushes him away, reminding him that they're not married yet. He laughs and expresses his anticipation for their marriage. Cecilia storms into Sean's study with an air of disruption, and the butler apologizes for being unable to stop her. Sean remains composed as Cecilia questions him about his upcoming marriage. He dismisses her provocations and informs her that it's not the right time for such discussions. Cecilia persists and suggests that no one knows what Herjeans may have been involved in while conducting business overseas, implying that it could extend beyond mere material goods. She tries to seduce him by undressing, but her advances do not elicit the response she expected. This displeases Cecilia, and she angrily leaves the study, slamming the door behind her. The butler provides Sean with some interesting information. He mentions that Lady Cecilia had recently argued with her father, Count Epernay, about marrying Sean, but Sean seems uninterested in this piece of news. Instead, he inquires about Reeve, indicating a need to meet with him. The butler responds that Reeve is not back at the moment. When asked about Elizur, he confirms that they are not in the area. However, he shares that there have been recent gatherings of Elizur, and Lady Herge was present at these meetings. Additionally, the butler discloses that in the year 994 of the Enix calendar, Herjean's parents passed away, and Estion entered university. During this time, Herjean's whereabouts remain unknown, although it's suggested she was abroad for business reasons. She returned in 996 and has not left since. Sean expresses curiosity about the high tuition fees of Estion's college, and the butler reassures him that he's continuing to investigate the matter. The butler proceeds to inform Sean about Lady Herjean's swords, which piques his interest as they resemble the weapons wielded by Herge. In response, Sean instructs the butler to keep an eye on the smith's shop, suggesting that he might be getting closer to uncovering the truth about Lady Herjean's and Herge. Herjean's quickly regains her composure and hides inside the shop as Sean enters. Sean questions Harvin about crafting him a sword, but the master blacksmith refuses the request. Suddenly, Sean mentions the rumors of the blacksmith working on a new sword, which piques Herjean's curiosity. Harvin then discloses that he is crafting a rapier and a main gauche. This revelation shocks Herjeans, who understands the significance of these weapons. Sean further inquires about the person who placed the order, and Harvin remains silent. He emphasizes that wielding a rapier and main gauche together requires extensive experience and extraordinary talent in swordsmanship. Sean concludes that there is only one person who fits that description, Herge of the mercenary group Elizur. Herjeans, alarmed by this revelation, begins to plan her escape. She intends to depart shortly after Sean. When she attempts to leave through the back door, she realizes it's open. Herjeans tears apart her dress to move more freely, uses the fabric as a scarf, puts on her hood, grabs the case containing the weapons, and exits the shop. To create a diversion and slow down Sean's pursuit, she throws the case as high as she can before attempting to flee from his men. Prince Raymond receives a report from his butler regarding the activities of the NX followers, known as the Illwoods, who have been moving about the Empire. This situation confuses the prince because he hasn't heard of the previous Illwoods passing, and he questions whether the followers are operating outside the holy city of Onyxia. Onyxism is a widely accepted religion with a high priest called Illwoods, who is believed to convey the voice of God's teaching. The butler confirms that followers typically only leave the city when searching for new Illwoods, and this unexpected behavior has other countries equally puzzled. Furthermore, the butler presents a new bill from Elizur, which surprises Prince Raymond. He explains that Elizur has incurred substantial expenses recently, especially after the war, and may consider siding with Haglotten if the bill isn't paid. Raymond is visibly frustrated with the situation, as he had offered Elizur positions in their order of knights, but it appears they are more interested in monetary compensation. Meanwhile, in the Targale estate, Hergines reflects on her recent encounter with Sean and concludes that her decision to run away from him was for the best. Her brother, Eschen, makes an appearance, and she notices scars on his wrists. Eschen, grappling with guilt over the arranged marriage, offers an apology, but Hergines quickly reassures him, urging him not to shoulder the blame. As the preparations for her wedding continue, Hergines finds herself adorned in her bridal attire, and her brother, Eschen, escorts her to the ceremony. Sean awaits her, and the wedding proceeds without any major hiccups. As the ceremony concludes, the couple shares a tender kiss, and to Hergines' surprise, Sean adds an unexpected French kiss to the mix. Their friends and family shower them with congratulations and well wishes. Sean's face beams with a bright smile, while Hergines blushes, still slightly bewildered by the sudden, passionate moment they shared. Hergines luxuriates in a relaxing bath, reflecting on the fact that it's their first night together as a married couple. When she completes her bath, a couple of maids address her as Countess, serving as a reminder of her new title and her status as the wife of a count. Later, she enters the beautifully redecorated bedroom, her focus drawn to the spread of food and wine thoughtfully arranged nearby. Her reverie is interrupted by the arrival of Sean, and an awkward silence envelops the room. In an attempt to break the tension, he questions whether she's concealing any secrets, but she sidesteps his inquiry and turns the tables, inquiring if he's harboring any hidden truths. Sean, wanting to infuse their evening with romance, sweeps her onto the floor. Their proximity intensifies, and he gazes at her, remarking that it's their first night together. The atmosphere grows tense as she becomes nervous, acutely aware that they are on the precipice of an intimate moment. With a sudden burst of courage, Sean inquires about her past experiences, and she responds by playfully leaping onto the bed and concealing herself beneath the sheets. Sean's demeanor softens, and he joins her on the bed, admitting that he still grapples with certain uncertainties and is unsure about his own feelings. As their passion ensues, we are given a glimpse into a poignant dream or memory from Sean's past. In this recollection, a voice informs us that Lady Kyroxis passed away while giving birth to Sean, and Sir Kyroxis met his end in a tragic accident. Rumors began to circulate that Sean was a cursed child responsible for his parents' demise, branding him as a demon in the eyes of many. The scene transitions to a young Sean conversing with a woman and a man who seem to be his closest kin. The woman expresses concern over what might happen if they were to meet the same fate as his biological parents. In response, the man declares that, from that moment onward, Sean is to be considered their servant. It becomes evident that Sean's adoptive parents treated him with cruelty, subjecting him to a harsh and tumultuous upbringing. One day, the couple's daughter attempts to seduce him and resorts to threats, intensifying the turmoil in Sean's already difficult life. This memory or dream fades as Sean awakens, finding himself gazing at Hergines, whom he finds beautiful and intriguing. He doesn't care whether she is Herge or not, as the previous night was truly unforgettable for him. Upon her awakening, Hergines and Sean share a tender moment, with a morning kiss and light conversation. As they part ways, Sean cautions her about the servants and maids, emphasizing that they are from the Imperial Palace, and her trust in them should be guarded. As Hergines reflects on the situation at Targale, she becomes aware that servants and maids sent by the Imperial Palace are displacing the existing ones, who are relegated to trivial tasks and mundane chores. When she shares this observation with Sean, he explains that it's likely due to his upbringing, which has instilled a certain level of distrust from His Highness. Sean offers a comforting gesture, patting her on the head before departing. Soon after, Hergines receives an opulent congratulatory gift from His Highness, which, rather than bringing her joy, fills her with pressure. In her response to the gift, she unintentionally comes across as unimpressed to the maid delivering the message. As she contemplates her future, the realization sinks in that she will now attend social gatherings instead of wielding a sword in battle. The transition from a warrior to a lady attending parties is a stark and poignant moment for Hergines, signifying a significant shift in her life. In another location, a butler reports to a noble that the wedding at the Targale Countship has concluded. The noble, rather disdainful, refers to Sean Kyroxis as an insignificant fool who has now become a Targale. He instructs the butler to send the prepared gifts, expressing his displeasure with Sean's perceived imperfection. Meanwhile, Hergines, after her evening study and writing, returns to her bed. She contemplates how she hasn't seen her husband since their first night. Sensing something amiss, she grabs her weapons. Suddenly, a group of assassins infiltrates her room. Despite their presence, Herjean's remains unruffled. The assassins, believing her to be an easy target, decide to withdraw as their actual mark is Sean. Instead of attacking them, Herjean's offers to let them go peacefully. However, they underestimate her, and she proceeds to defeat the would-be assailants in combat. That is all for today. Who are the assassins? Would Sean be able to uncover the identity of Herj? Find out in the next video. And if you enjoyed this one, give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.